So today we are going to install 3.3 Falcon piggyback shocks onto our Jeep Wrangler Rubicon Recon Edition. We'll show you exactly how to do this. We're going to lift the Jeep up. We've just got a jack stand here. We're going to go ahead and lift it up from the pumpkin here, raise it up so we can get some jack stands underneath it. Now, if this doesn't raise up high enough, you can always add a couple blocks of wood in there in between, and that will help lift it up. Or if you've got a high lift jack, you could put that on there and raise it up that way. With the vehicle up on jack stands and the vehicle off the ground, now we can safely remove the lug nuts and then take the tire off. With the tires off, now we can go ahead and lower this down. The goal here is to get these shocks all the way extended. We call it full droop, so that it makes it easier to put the new ones in. I've also got a second set over here with the ratchet. First I'm gonna break it just to make it nice and loose. Okay? And then, with that loose, I'm gonna hold it on one side and use the other side, and you can ratchet it off. The other thing you can do to speed things up is take your 19 and put it on the end of one of these bad boys. Again, just hold this in place and then spin it off, okay? Now, the shock is gonna naturally push down on this bolt, so you wanna try and pry up on it with a nice fat screwdriver and then use a hammer or mallet and hammer this bolt out. So I take the screwdriver, I wanna find a nice place where I can kind of give some pressure. So take a look at this. Come in close on this. So I'm gonna put the screwdriver up here. Here's the mount right here that I can kind of lift up on it. See that? So I'm gonna lift up on it just enough to take the pressure off the bolt, and then I can hammer that bolt on out. Once you've got the bottom bolts out, the next is to take the top two bolts. Now they're kind of high up in there, so I use an extension. I've got a 10-inch extension here, 12-inch extension. I put my 16 on here, okay? And I'm just gonna attach it to this and zip them right out. Yep. And with the bolt loose, simply just pull it off, and voila, you're out. So I've got the bracket, the bottom bolt for the Falcon shock on the rear here. Now you'll notice, because we're going to use the bolt-on skid plates, this actually goes right in between here. Now, the way we had our previous setup, we actually already had to bend those out a bit, and so this is actually fitting just fine. If this doesn't go in nicely for you, TeraFlex has got a great video about how to install these, and you just take them and spread these out a little bit. But we fit actually really nicely in here. Now, this would normally go in here, and this becomes a crush sleeve for this piece here. But because that bolt-on piece already has it, we can take this off, okay? And we're simply gonna thread this in, go through the hole here, and then go in. Now you'll notice this doesn't fit. So we actually have to make these holes larger to accommodate this larger bolt. Let's do that now. One thing you want to do when you're drilling metal is get a little WD-40 on there. That oil keeps things from getting a little too hot. So I'm just going to spray a little bit on there. Okay? And if it starts to smoke again or have problems, we'll do that again. With the hole drilled out, the area cleaned up, now we're ready to put on our skid plate. Line it up in there. Put the bolt on through. Okay? It's going to hang down a bit, but that's okay. We're going to loosely put the washer and the nut on the other side. Okay? And then what we'll do is we'll tighten this up and raise this up to this point, and then we have to drill a hole here for the top bolt. Another thing you can do to kind of anticipate your messes to make cleanup a lot easier. You could easily just put a shop towel or some other towel down underneath the area. In this case, I'm gonna be using WD-40 to spray on the bolt hole, which means that is gonna drip down, and instead of going on the ground, it's gonna go here. The other thing that's nice is as I'm drilling, metal shaving is gonna drop down and hit this cloth. Now, a nice little tip for this, if I switch to this mode, I can spray this towel lightly with a little bit of oil. That keeps it down so the wind doesn't blow it away. But it also makes it so as you're drilling, the metal shavings drop down here, and instead of bouncing around, they'll kind of stick to the oil and stick to the wet towel. So it allows you to clean up to be really easy afterwards. So you can see not all the shavings went on there, but the majority of the WD-40, the shavings, things like that are there. Much easier cleanup to just kind of do this. And wipe the area around, pull it in together, and it's a lot faster. Next, we need to tighten the outside bolt here to 40 foot-pounds. And I've already adjusted my torque wrench. I put this Allen key in here because you'll see that the bolt actually has an Allen key in here. So instead of tightening this outside bolt as well, we're tightening the actual center bolt. And it actually works out really nicely to just pin that against there. And you can do it all one-handed. So I'm just gonna go to 40 foot-pounds. Hear that little click? That means we're there. That easy. So on the upper side here, notice that we've got one bolt already in there, okay? We wanna have that as loose as it can be without it falling out. So you'll notice that one side of the Falcon shock has a little fork in it. The other one does not. We're just gonna hook this up in that side that's already in, and then you'll be able to line it up, and once it's on there, then you can put the other bolt in here. I compress the shock up, and as it drops down, it'll line up perfectly. And I just line it up on there, and then nudge it on. Now I'm gonna put the washer on here. Go there. And then we just torque this down to 40 foot-pounds. There we go. Easy enough. Oh, and don't forget to take the sticker off. Another step in the instructions says that you're supposed to drill a hole here and then put a second bolt that they provided in there. I'm actually not gonna do that on these particular skid plates because we're going to do a seam of weld right here, and that'll hold it in place even more permanently than the bolt. So next we're going to remove the lower bolt from the shock. Actually pretty easy to do. You just take an 18 and an end wrench here, and you're just gonna crank them off. I prefer to start with the bottom on the shock because I can lift it up and remove it out. This top mount here is actually really challenging to get out, so having the ability to loosen this and having that hang freely will make getting that top out a lot easier. Okay, shock is out. Next we're going to work on the top. So this top shock mount, really kind of hard to get to. What I found is if you push this plastic piece up, okay, allows you to get to this nut, and then that nut's got to be all the way loose. Because we undid the bottom first, as we loosen, gravity will pull this down, and instead of going up and making it harder, it should actually pull it down, make it easier. So pretty easy to do. So when you get the shocks, they actually have the nut on top. You'll want to take a 19 and pull this off. Then the top washer, which is kind of concave like that, and then this washer comes off, and it leaves the bottom washer here. You'll notice that this washer has this little thing right here, okay? That is used to kind of suspend it in this hole. So you're gonna line it up by putting it in this hole. Now I'm gonna start by actually putting the washer up top, okay? And inserting it. There's actually a lip on the bottom. It fits in perfectly there, okay? Then I'm gonna take this washer and also put it on top of that. Okay, so that was the bushing and then the washer. I said washer, but I meant bushing. So the rubber bushing in here, then the metal washer on top. Now I'm gonna lift this into place, hook this kind of through that hole as I put this up and through, up almost as high as it'll go. This allows me to line it up in the hole first. This little tab goes in that back hole, okay? Now that that tab's in the back hole, I just simply push up. I wanna get my hand on the top here and find where that shock mount is coming through, push it up, okay? And then as I push it up, I'm now going to take this top nut and loosely thread it in place to hold it. Now take a look down here. To make this easy, I've actually put my knee underneath here, and it allows me to lift it up and take some of the pressure off, so I'm not having to work so hard with my hands, and allows it really easy way to pop it in. So I've got this brake line relocation kit, as well as my bolt for my shock here. You'll notice the shock isn't quite there. I've lowered the axle as much as I want to, or as much as I can. Next, I'm gonna push up on this, just kind of create some pressure. Compress that shock enough that I can drop it into the hole. Okay, it's actually helpful. If you go, well, before I do that, I'm gonna take this off so I can be ready to put that on. Whoop, runaway bolt. All right, so I'm gonna push this up. These are good shocks. And as it goes in place, okay, now it's there. Now I can use a screwdriver to lift up on it and get it exactly where I need it to be. So, a screwdriver, or if you've got a pry bar, that works too. Okay, kind of just wiggle it around to the right spot, get that bolt in there, and you just gotta kind of finagle it. And as you pry up on the side, either side, it goes through nicely, and then you just get the other side on. Last thing we want to do is torque that bottom bolt to 40, and we're there. So this last side, after we did it, one thing that I found that really helped was I took a knife, just a nice sharp knife, and cut this top piece in here. Because this is where the battery compartment is, this plastic is shaped differently than the other side, and it's a lot harder. There's not as much give, so you don't have as much way to get in there to that nut. So carving that little piece out makes it really, really nice to get your wrench in there and go back and forth. Once that's all tightened up and you got your bolts bolted up, then you're good to go. It's time to put the wheel back on. Before we do that, I want to explain the adjustment here on the Falcon shocks. So you can see there's a short side and a long side. This long side, the arrow, is where you're actually adjusting to. So 1 is the softest. 2 allows you to do micro adjustments within there. So you've got 9 different levels, I believe it is. 8 different levels of adjustment in there. You can change that dial. Or you can go to 3, which is the most firm. So you've got 3 different levels of adjustment based on the type of driving you're doing. And there's a nice little guide over here. And there's a nice little guide over here that adheres to the door that shows you what you might want to do. So soft for comfort on the road, slow off-road, custom, you can do, choose a section there, and then firm for doing sport on the road, or for increased bottoming, like if you're going over a bunch of ledges or steps, or if you've got a lot of resistance. So nice little guide that goes right outside your door and makes it easy to remember which setting is which. Once you got all your tires done, torque them down. I'm going 100 foot-pounds on those, and then you're done. It's time to clean up and go enjoy your Falcon shocks. Let's take a look at these. I think when we take a look at how they look from behind, you could take those wheel chocks out, but darn, that looks pretty awesome. Well, that's it. That's how you install a set of Falcon shocks on a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon Recon Edition. Thanks for watching.